Hello, adorable charms. You're most welcome to Everything Literature, where you get to learn about everything concerning drama, prose, the most inspiring poetry. Take a seat and enjoy the class. In other fields of study, such as sciences and commerce, meaning of words are usually fixed. That is, words such as carbon monoxide or opportunity cost will possibly mean the same thing in every sentence in which they appear. However, this is different in literature. In literature, most especially poetry, words often derive the meaning based on context, that is, beyond the literal meaning. One of the features that makes literature a distinguished field of study is in the way language is used figuratively. Once again, you're most welcome to Everything Literature. The focus for today's class will be on figures of speech. Objective for the class are: what are figures of speech? Division of figures of speech. 7 classifications of figures of speech. Figures based on similarity, simile, metaphor. Without further ado, let's delve into the class. Figures of speech. Figures of speech are words or phrases that leave the ordinary or literal meaning in order to produce a greater effect. That is, we leave the dictionary meaning of a word and advance to a different meaning entirely in order to produce a greater effect. The word figure is derived from the Latin word figura, which means something remarkable. So that is when a word has a meaning that is remarkable, that is extraordinary. Why do we use figures of speech? For the usefulness of figures of speech, we use figures of speech in our expression to add deeper meaning and interest to words and to also awaken the imagination. One is that we want to give a deeper meaning to a word. Another is that we want to make a word sound or appear more interesting, and also to awaken the imagination. It should appeal to the imagination. Now, when we use figures of speech in writing, we use it for the sake of emphasis, concision, clarity, rhythm, novelty, that is, you want to try something new, peculiarity, that is, you just want it to be your particular style. And we have style as well, and so on. Figures of speech. Now, figures of speech can be grouped or divided into 2. We have tropes and we have scheme. For tropes, we have word trope and we have sentence trope. Under word trope, we have simile, metaphor, hyperbole. Under sentence trope, we have irony, paradox, metonymy, and the likes. We have more than this actually. Then we have under scheme, grammatical scheme. Under grammatical scheme, we have assonance, alliteration, parallelism, chiasmus, and the likes. Rhetorical scheme, we have antithesis, epitrophy or epiphoral, hyperlage or transferred epithets, and the likes. I know you may be wondering, what do we mean by tropes? Or what do we mean by scheme? Trope is a figure of speech in which the use of a word or a phrase changes the meaning of a sentence. That is, when we use a word, the word actually changes the meaning of the sentence. It goes beyond its literal meaning. Why? Because the word trope comes from the Latin word tropos, meaning turn. That is, turning the meaning of a sentence another way by the use of a word. So we change the meaning of a sentence by the way we use a word. And for scheme, it comes from the Greek word schema, meaning form or shape. Scheme refers to a change in the usual order of words for the sake of rhetorical effect. Schemes deals with the arrangement of words based on order, letters, syntax, and sounds, whereas trope deals with modifying the meaning of the word. So scheme deals with the arrangement of the word. Trope has to do with how the word changes the meaning of a sentence. So both trope and scheme deals with changes. One deals with changes in order, in arrangement, while the other deals with changes in the meaning being altered, the meaning being changed, the meaning of a word or the meaning of a sentence. But for the basic level, we would not look at figures of speech based on the division or the grouping yet, which is tropes and scheme. We work with it based on classifications, and we have 7 classifications of figures of speech. We have classifications based on similarity or agreement, figures based on sounds, that's the second. The third, we have figures based on association. 4, we have figures based on difference. 5, we have figures based on imagination. 6, we have figures based on indirectness or oppositeness. And the last one, we have figures based on construction. Now, focus for today's class will be on figures based on similarity or agreement. Now, this has to do with comparing two different or unlike things together, more or less like comparing A to B, or should I say comparing A with B. And the first one under this, we have simile. The word simile comes from the Latin word similis, which means like, not to like, but like. And the second is metaphor. The word metaphor comes from the Greek meta, meaning beyond, and for means to bear or carry. What is simile? The word simile comes from the Latin word similis, which means like. Simile refers to when two unlike things are being compared using the words like, as, or than. It is usually introduced with the use of like or as in most cases, okay? And it's different from metaphor because metaphor is an indirect comparison, while simile is a direct comparison. Connected words such as like, as, than, similar to, resembles, and seems are usually used when we're trying to make an expression similar in nature. Okay, take for instance, she is as pretty as a rose. She smells like honey. In the first one, we have the words as and has being used, comparing a female gender to a rose. In the second one, we said she smells like honey, comparing a female gender, a girl or a lady, to a honey. So let's take a look at our poem. This is titled A Red, Red Rose. Oh, my love is a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love's is the melody that's sweetly played in tune. This is a poem by Robert Burns. We have in the first line, my love is like. The word like there makes this expression a simile, comparing his love or my love to a red, red rose. And in the third line, we have the love being compared to a melody again, okay? By using simile, the writer attracts the attention of the audience, okay? And simile allows readers to relate the feelings of the author to their personal experiences as well. We'll take a look at the poem again. The speaker says that his love is like a fresh red rose that blossoms in spring. Also, his love is similar to a pleasant and sweet melody that is well played to be enjoyed. What is metaphor? This is an indirect comparison between two things without the use of connectors such as like or as. Metaphor. The word metaphor comes from the Greek meta, meaning beyond, and for means to bear or carry. Hence, metaphor means a word carrying or bearing a meaning beyond the direct comparison. How is metaphor different from simile? Unlike simile that makes use of connectors such as like or as, metaphor achieves comparison by saying one thing in such an indirect or implied manner. That is, it says an expression in an indirect or implied manner. Take for instance, all the world is a stage. So we comparing the whole word to something, a stage. So A equals B, kind of. She is a rose. That is, she is not looking like a rose. She is a rose. So A equals B. But in simile, it's a case of A looks like B. A appears like B. But in metaphor, it has to be in an implied manner. She is a rose. Let's take a look at this poem titled Metaphors by Slavia Plath. I am a riddle in 9 syllables, an elephant, a Pandora's house, a melon strolling on 2 ends. In a poetic manner, Plath tries to define metaphor. She gives an unusual meaning for the term, unlike what is written in a dictionary. She writes on the very first line that metaphors are a riddle in 9 syllables. Well, whenever I can say. From this line, it can be observed that metaphor is something confusing or difficult to serve, whereas metaphors are not really difficult, so to say. To simplify things, let's take a look at 5 types of metaphor, 5 basic types of metaphor. We have the first one to be directly stated metaphor. This is the commonest type of metaphor. It states that A equals B. For instance, success is a bee, life is a dream, variety is the spice of life, according to Cowper. So if we take a look at these examples, we have success, which is A, equals B. That is, B is a B. In this instance, it's just sounding alike, actually. Okay, so success is a B. Success is not like a B, or success is like a B. No, that's not it. We are saying success is a B. Life is a dream, not life is like a dream. Life is a dream. Okay, variety is the spice. The second type has to do with implied metaphor. Implied metaphor is an indirect metaphor where an implication to the whole is made. So for instance, we often make expressions like this: shut your trap, he ruffled his feathers. Now in these examples, we have trap to be an implied metaphor. There is an indirect metaphor for something. What do we mean by trap? Trap in this instance is not just talking about a normal trap, it's talking about the mouth. He ruffled his feathers. Feathers in this instance, it's implied for the arms. So implied metaphor would actually require that the reader or the audience get to reflect a bit, think a little bit deeper. Third is extended metaphor. All the words is stage and men and women are mere players. This is a popular expression by the Bard himself, William Shakespeare. Why is this an extended metaphor? The extension there is that men and women are merely players, has made this an extended metaphor in the sense that the word and a stage has been used as a metaphor. It's more or less like a directly stated metaphor. All the words is a stage. But by having men and women are merely players, has extended the metaphor in the sense that who do we have in the world? We have men and women in the world, mere players, or should I say players, as those who act on the stage or who perform on the stage. So in one manner, we've extended this metaphor by giving a further meaning into what we have in the first instance of the metaphor. All the words are stage, men and women are merely players. So it's more or less like a double metaphor coming together by the use of inflection. To get it, all the words are stage, that's a metaphor in one instance. Men and women are merely players, that's like not a metaphor, but it's kind of related, and it's a kind of continuation, kind of extension of the first metaphor. The fourth one, we have dead metaphor. Oh my goodness me. Dead metaphors have to do with metaphors that have been overused, that have lost their individuality. Okay, take for instance, we often hear expressions such as the head of the house, face of the mountain, crown of glory. We come across this in some of the religious contexts, okay, whereby some certain phrases or some certain expressions used in some religious text, you can't really change them because they're considered sacred, spiritual. And funny enough, what we consider dead metaphors are actually what works wonders sometimes, okay? But as writers, we may be encouraged to avoid dead metaphors because most people are familiar with them already. And if you're not going to use dead metaphors, then you may be tempted to use mixed metaphor, of which it's not really advisable as well. Okay, so what are mixed metaphor? Mixed metaphor are twisted or out of turn metaphor. What this means is that sometimes we want to create metaphors on our own and we actually fail in creating the right metaphor. So it means this metaphor fails to make a logical comparison because it's mixed terms that are visually or imaginatively incompatible. So you're trying to make use of a metaphor because we said A equals B and you're trying to compare A with a B that are quite visually or imaginatively incompatible. Let's take a look at this. The waves of emotion have punched my heart. Now we have waves of emotion to be a kind of metaphor, okay? This is another form of metaphor in reference to the heart. Okay, so how does waves that moves like a tide of a sea, how does it get to punch? Okay, but somehow it kind of makes sense, right? It's just kind of sound good. It sounds a bit better than the dead metaphor that are quite common. Okay, so you sound poetic, you sound figurative by the time you use a mixed metaphor as well. But in most cases, the first three are like the ones we can really encourage, that you use the directly stated metaphor, the implied metaphor, or the extended metaphor. With this, we've come to the end of the class and conclusion. Let's quickly have a recap. We said a figure of speech is nothing but a remarkable way of saying something so as to enhance deeper meaning and interest to words and also to awaken the imagination. We got to group and classify figures of speech. Now for the group, we said figures of speech can be grouped into two rhetorical devices known as tropes and schemes. Okay, remember, tropes has to do with turn, that is when a word changes or alters the meaning of a sentence, and scheme has to do with the order, that is the arrangement of words or letters in a particular line of poem. Oh, did we even have that? That's just an addition. Okay, tropes are further divided into word tropes and sentence tropes. Schemes are also divided into grammatical schemes and rhetorical schemes. And specifically, we said we will not be working with tropes and schemes yet. It's more like the advanced level to understanding what figures of speech are. So we had to work with 7 classifications of figures of speech. We have figures based on similarity, or agreement, figures based on sound, figures based on association, figures based on difference, figures based on imagination, figures based on indirectness or oppositeness, and figures based on construction. And specifically for today's class, we've been able to look at figures based on similarity or agreement. We have more than two actually under these figures based on similarity or agreement. It's not just limited to simile and metaphor. We have fable, we have allegory, we have symbols as well. But those ones more or less work as literary devices, not just as figures of speech. So if you find today's class very interesting and valuable, please do well to like the video, subscribe if you're yet to, and let me get to know your thoughts in the comment section below. Get to see you in the next class. Take care.